The grocery store's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. I stood in the cereal aisle, staring at prices that had somehow jumped another $1 since last week, doing math that never worked out the way I needed it to. $15 left until Friday. 3 days away. Riley needed milk. I needed coffee. The electric bill sat unopened in my purse because I already knew what it said. 26 years old. And this was my life. Counting pennies in a Chicago Jewel Osco at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night because working 2 jobs meant shopping happened when normal people were already asleep. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Miss Hayes? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. This is Margaret Chen from Elite Household Services. We received your application for the nanny position. Are you still available? If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. My heart kicked against my ribs. I'd applied to that posting 3 weeks ago, then forgotten about it when I never heard back. Positions with Elite paid real money. The kind that meant choosing between electricity and groceries wouldn't be a monthly crisis. Yes, I said, probably too quickly. Absolutely. I'm very interested. The client would like to meet you tomorrow morning. 10 a.m. I'm texting you the address now. Please arrive promptly. Mr. Castellano values punctuality. The call ended before I could ask questions. My phone pinged with an address in Lincoln Park, the kind of neighborhood where parking cost more than my rent. I stood there holding a box of generic cornflakes, my minimum wage grocery store cashier uniform making me feel small and invisible, and let myself hope. Just a little. Just enough to hurt if it didn't work out. The house wasn't a house. It was a fortress disguised as a mansion. I stood on the sidewalk the next morning, staring up at 3 stories of stone and glass that screamed old money and new security. Cameras dotted the property. A wrought iron fence surrounded perfectly manicured grounds. 2 men in dark suits stood near the entrance, their postures too rigid to be anything but professional security. This wasn't normal. Normal families didn't need armed guards for a nanny interview. I should have walked away, should have recognized the warning signs. But the rent was due in 5 days, and I had exactly $73 in my checking account. So I smoothed down my interview outfit, a dress I'd found at Goodwill that almost passed for professional, and pressed the intercom button. Savannah Hayes for Mr. Castellano, I said to the camera lens pointed at my face. The gate buzzed open without response. The walkway to the front door felt like a mile. The men watched me approach with eyes that assessed and cataloged and made me feel like a potential threat, rather than a broke nanny, a candidate. One of them opened the door before I could knock. Miss Hayes, follow me. Inside was even more intimidating. Marble floors that reflected my worn shoes back at me. Art on the walls that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. A curved staircase that belonged in a movie about people who summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. The guard led me to a study lined with leather-bound books and furniture that looked antique and expensive. Wait here. He left. I stood in the center of the room, afraid to touch anything, counting the seconds and trying not to panic about what I'd gotten myself into. Then I heard it. Crying. Not the angry tantrum of a tired child, but something deeper, desperate. The kind of sobbing that came from a place words couldn't reach. The sound pulled at something in my chest. Before I could think better of it, my feet carried me toward the doorway, following that heartbreaking sound down a hallway toward what looked like a living room. A man sat on a leather sofa, his back to me. Dark hair, expensive suit, shoulders rigid with tension. In his arms, a small boy, maybe 3 years old, thrashed and sobbed like his heart was breaking, like the whole world was ending and no one could stop it. The man was trying. God, he was trying. One large hand rubbed circles on the boy's back. The other held a stuffed rabbit that had clearly seen better days. His voice was low, accented, speaking Italian in soothing tones that weren't even close to working. Shh, Piccolo, per favore, Papa's here, Papa has you. The boy only cried harder. I should have announced myself, should have waited in the study like I'd been told. But something about the scene froze me in place. The desperation in the man's voice. The way his hand trembled slightly as it smoothed his son's dark curls. The exhaustion carved into every line of his posture. This wasn't a man used to failing, but he was failing at this. The boy's crying hitched and changed pitch. He was working himself into hyperventilation territory. I recognized it from the 3 years I'd spent working at Little Sprouts daycare before they'd closed last month. Panic attack, building momentum. Without thinking, I started humming. The melody came from somewhere deep in my memory. My grandmother had sung it to me every night when I'd lived with her after my parents died. She'd called it a lullaby her own grandmother had taught her, passed down through generations of women in our family. Irish, maybe, or older than that. The words had been lost somewhere along the way, leaving only the tune. Hush now, little one. Close your weary eyes. I didn't realize I was actually singing until the boy's crying cut off mid-sob. The man's head snapped toward me. I got my first real look at his face and nearly stepped back from the intensity of it. He was younger than I'd expected. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark eyes that matched his son's, set in a face that was all sharp angles and controlled power. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, pale against olive skin. Handsome in a dangerous way that made my pulse skip for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. But it was his expression that stopped my breath. Shock, recognition, and something raw and painful that looked like grief. The boy had gone completely still in his father's arms. Those dark eyes, mirrors of his father's, fixed on me with an intensity that seemed impossible for someone so small. Tears still streaked his flushed cheeks, but he'd stopped crying, stopped thrashing, just stared at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking for a very long time. I kept singing, soft, barely above a whisper, letting the melody fill the silence. The moon is watching over you beneath the darkened skies. How do you know that song? The man's voice was rough, barely controlled, each word precise and sharp as broken glass. I stopped singing. The boy whimpered immediately, reaching toward me with small hands. My grandmother taught it to me, I said carefully. When I was little, she said it was very old, passed down through her family. What is your name? Not quite a demand, but close. Savannah Hayes. I'm here for the Nanny interview. Something flickered across his face. Too many emotions to name, happening too fast to catalog. He looked down at his son, then back at me, and when he spoke again, his voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. That lullaby. He stopped. Swallowed hard. Only my wife sang it. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication and loss. I didn't know, I said softly. I'm sorry if I... Sing it again. Not a request. His dark eyes burned with something desperate and dangerous. Please, sing it for him. The boy was already reaching for me, making small sounds of need that bypassed every professional boundary I should have maintained. I moved closer without conscious decision, drawn by instinct older than training. May I? I asked, gesturing toward his son. The man nodded once, a sharp, controlled movement. The boy came into my arms like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment, small and warm and trusting in a way that made my throat tight. He settled against my shoulder with a shuddering sigh, his tiny fist curling into the fabric of my dress. I sang, Stars will guide you through the night, keep you safe till morning light. The boy's breathing evened out. His body relaxed incrementally, tension draining away with each note. By the time I reached the second verse, his eyes were drooping. By the third, he was asleep. Complete surrender in the arms of a stranger. I looked up and found the man watching us with an expression that made my heart stutter. Intense didn't begin to cover it. He stared like we were a miracle and a ghost all at once, like I'd just performed actual magic in his living room. He hasn't slept through the night in 11 months, he said quietly, since his mother died. Nothing helps. No medication, no specialist, no. He trailed off, shaking his head. How did you do that? The song, I said simply. Sometimes all a child needs is something familiar, something that reminds them they're safe. But you are not familiar. He has never met you before today. No, but maybe the song is familiar enough. We stood there in strange silence, connected by the sleeping child in my arms. I should have felt uncomfortable, should have been intimidated by this man who radiated power and danger like heat from a furnace. Instead, I felt oddly calm, like this moment had been inevitable since the second I'd stepped through his door. My name is Dante Castellano, he said finally. This is my son, Marco, and Miss Hayes. His dark eyes met mine, held them. You are hired. I should have asked more questions. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Should have negotiated salary, discussed responsibilities, established boundaries. But Dante Castellano didn't give me the chance. He took Marco from my arms with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him, carried his sleeping son from the room, and returned 5 minutes later with an older woman who introduced herself as Rosa, the housekeeper. "Show Miss Hayes to the guest room," he told her, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "She will stay here tonight so Marco can adjust to her presence." "I can't just move in today," I protested. "I have a job, an apartment. I need to. Your salary will be $15,000 per month, plus room and board, health insurance, and a signing bonus to cover any obligations you need to settle." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "Text me your landlord's information, and I will handle your lease termination. What other employment do you have?" "I work at a grocery store. Night shift." The words felt small compared to the amounts of money he'd just mentioned so casually. "You will give notice tonight. 2 weeks if you want. Require it. But I will pay whatever is necessary to accelerate that timeline." He looked up from his phone, pinned me with those intense dark eyes. "Marco needs you. I need you. Name anything else that is preventing you from starting immediately." My head spun. 15,000 a month. I couldn't even process what that meant. A year of that would wipe out my student loans. 2 years would let me go back to school, finish my early childhood education degree that I'd abandoned when the money ran out. "This is insane," I said. "You don't even know me. I could be terrible with children. I could be, you got my son to sleep for the first time in 11 months. You knew exactly what he needed the moment you heard him crying, and you sing my late wife's lullaby." His jaw tightened. "I have had 6 nannies in 11 months. None of them lasted more than 3 weeks. None of them could reach him. But you." He gestured at the hallway where Marco slept. "You reached him in 8 minutes. So no, Miss Hayes, this is not insane. This is necessity. How did your wife die?" The question escaped before I could stop it. "I'm sorry. That's none of my business. I shouldn't have. Car accident." His voice went flat, emotionless in a way that meant the emotion was too big to show. 11 months ago. Marco was in the car. He saw everything. He paused, something dangerous flickering across his features. The investigation concluded it was a brake line failure. Mechanical defect. The way he said it made me think he didn't believe that conclusion. But I didn't ask. Couldn't ask. There were shadows in his eyes that warned against pushing deeper. "What do you need from me?" I asked instead. "Besides the obvious childcare. Marco has appointments, speech therapy twice a week, regular pediatrician visits. He eats poorly, sleeps worse. The specialists say it is grief, that he will heal with time." Frustration bled through his controlled tone. "But it has been 11 months and he is not healing. He is disappearing, becoming more distant every day. I am losing him." The raw pain in those last words cracked something in my chest. "I'll help," I heard myself say. "However I can. But Mr. Castellano, Dante, if you are going to live in my home, care for my son, we should use first names." "Dante," I corrected, testing the name on my tongue. "I need you to understand something. I'm not a miracle worker. I don't have a degree in child psychology. I worked at a daycare for 3 years and I love kids. But I'm not a specialist. That song might have worked once, but it might not work again. You're putting a lot of faith in someone based on one lucky moment. It was not luck." He moved closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. Each step measured. "My wife spent every night of Marco's life singing him that lullaby. Every single night from the day he was born until the day she died. He knows it better than he knows his own name. And you," he stopped, just inside my personal space, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and cedar dark. "You sound like her. Not identical, but similar enough. The tone, the pitch. He responded to you because you gave him back something he thought he had lost forever. That's a lot of pressure." "Yes." No apology in his tone. "But I will pay you well to handle it. And Miss Hayes." His dark eyes held mine. "I protect what is mine. You will be safer here than anywhere else in Chicago. I promise you that." The word sent a chill down my spine. Not from fear, but from recognition. This man was dangerous. Everything about him screamed power and control and violence held barely in check. The security, the mansion, the way he moved like a predator even in his own home. But he was also a father desperate to save his son, and I understood desperate better than most people. "Okay," I said. "I'll try. For Marco. And the song?" His voice dropped lower. "You will sing it to him? Every night?" "If that's what helps him, yes." Something in his expression shifted, softened just slightly around the edges. "Thank you, Savannah." My name and his voice did something to my pulse. I absolutely could not afford to think about. Rosa appeared in the doorway, saving me from whatever was building in the space between us. The guest room is prepared. Would Miss Hayes like to see it? Yes, I said quickly. Too quickly. Thank you. I followed Rosa through hallways that seemed designed to impress and intimidate in equal measure. The guest room was bigger than my entire studio apartment. King bed, sitting area, attached bathroom with a shower that had more jets than should be legal. Dinner is at 7, Rosa said. Mr. Castellano prefers to eat as a family when he is home. He will expect you to join them. Is he home often? Something flickered across her weathered face. More now than before. Since Signora Castellano died, he tries to be here for Marco, but his business. She trailed off, shaking her head. It demands much of him. What kind of business? Rosa's expression shuddered. That is not my place to say. But Miss Hayes. She touched my arm gently. Be careful. This house, this family, there are things you do not yet understand. Things that may frighten you when you learn them. Should I be frightened? Of Mr. Castellano? No, he is a good man, a good father. But his world, she sighed. His world is not always kind to the people he cares about. His wife learned that. I pray you do not have to learn it the same way. She left before I could ask what she meant. I sat on the edge of the massive bed, pulled out my phone, and Googled Dante Castellano Chicago. The results made my blood run cold. Articles about the Castellano family's suspected organized crime connections. Investigations that never resulted in charges. Whispers of money laundering, protection rackets, connections to international smuggling operations. Photos of Dante at charity galas and business meetings, always in expensive suits, always with that same controlled expression. The most recent article was from 3 months ago. Federal investigation into Castellano Enterprises stalls again, witnesses disappear. I should have left. Should have walked out that door and never looked back. Instead, I thought about Marco's tear-stained face. About the way he'd settled into my arms like he'd finally found home. About Dante's desperate eyes when he'd begged me to sing. About $15,000 a month, and what that could mean for my life. I closed the browser, turned off my phone, and decided to stay. At least for now. At least until I understood what I'd really walked into. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Miss Hayes? Rosa's voice through the door. Marco is awake. He is asking for you. My heart clenched. He couldn't really be asking for me. He barely spoke, according to what Dante had said. But when I opened the door, Rosa's expression was warm. He pointed at the door and said, "Sing, lady." First words he has spoken in 3 days. I followed her back through the mansion to a bedroom that looked like something from a children's magazine. Toys organized on shelves, books arranged by size, a bed shaped like a race car, and in the center of it all, Marco, sitting on the floor with his stuffed rabbit, watching the door with those heartbreakingly hopeful eyes. The moment he saw me, he reached up. Sing? His voice was small, rusty from disuse, but real, undeniably real. I sat on the floor beside him. What would you like me to sing, sweetheart? He just looked at me, those dark eyes so like his father's, holding too much sadness for someone so young. So I sang the lullaby, all the verses my grandmother had taught me, and Marco curled into my lap like a kitten finding warmth, his small body relaxing with each note, his breathing evening out into something that looked almost like peace. I didn't notice Dante standing in the doorway until I'd finished. Didn't know how long he'd been there, watching us with an expression I couldn't begin to decode. He never does that, Dante said quietly. Never approaches anyone so easily. Not even me most days. Children know who makes them feel safe. Yes. He moved into the room, sat on the floor across from us. They do. We stayed like that for an hour. The 3 of us on the floor of Marco's room while I sang every children's song I could remember. And slowly, impossibly, something began to feel right about this strange situation I'd stumbled into. Dangerous, yes. Complicated, absolutely. But right in a way I couldn't explain and didn't dare question. At least not yet. 3 weeks passed like fever dreams. Days that started with Marco's small hand tugging at my sleeve, demanding stories and songs and attention I gave freely. Nights that ended with me singing him to sleep, his tiny body finally relaxed, finally peaceful. He was healing, slowly, like spring, thawing frozen ground, but unmistakably healing. The nightmares still came, too, Sometimes 3 times a night, he'd wake screaming. But now when I appeared in his doorway, humming that lullaby, he'd reach for me instead of thrashing away from comfort. He'd let me hold him. Let me sing until sleep found him again. Dante noticed everything. Of course he did. Men like him missed nothing. I'd catch him watching us from doorways, leaning against the frame of whatever room Marco and I occupied, his dark eyes tracking every interaction with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. Not threatening. Something else. Something that made my pulse skip in ways I absolutely could not afford. He smiled today, Dante said one evening. We stood in the hallway outside Marco's room, where his son had finally fallen asleep after an hour of bedtime resistance. At breakfast, you were telling him about the squirrels in the garden, and he smiled. I have not seen him smile in 11 months. He's starting to trust that good things can exist again, I said softly. That joy doesn't always end in pain. Are you speaking from experience? I glanced at him, found those dark eyes studying my face like it held secrets he needed to decode. My parents died when I was 7, car accident, like Marco. I survived. They didn't. I understand what it feels like when the world stops making sense. His expression shifted, softened in a way I'd rarely seen. I did not know. I am sorry. It was a long time ago. My grandmother raised me after that, gave me stability, love, everything I needed to heal. I traced the doorframe with one finger, not looking at him. That's what Marco needs. Stability. Routine. Someone who won't leave. You will not leave? The question carried weight I didn't fully understand. Even when you learn things about this family that might frighten you? My heart kicked against my ribs. What things? Come. He turned, walked toward his study. Not an invitation, an expectation. I followed because refusing felt impossible. Because 3 weeks in this house had taught me that Dante Castellano didn't ask questions unless he already knew the answers. His study smelled like leather and expensive scotch. He poured 2 glasses, handed me one, gestured to the chair across from his desk. I sat, waited, watched him struggle with words that clearly didn't come easy. You have Googled me, he said finally. Statement, not question. You know what people say about my family, about our businesses? Yes. Do you believe what you read? I took a sip of scotch I didn't want. It burned going down, gave me something to focus on besides the intensity of his gaze. I believe you're more than what the newspapers say, but I also believe there's truth under the speculation. Diplomatic. Almost a smile. And accurate. My family has been in Chicago for 4 generations. We have businesses, restaurants, import companies, real estate. Some of those businesses are legitimate, some. He swirled the scotch in his glass. Some operate in gray areas the law does not appreciate. Gray areas like organized crime? Gray areas like protection services for businessmen who cannot go to the police. Like facilitating imports that may not go through traditional customs channels. Like investments that generate returns the IRS finds questionable. His eyes never left mine. I do not kill innocent people, Savannah. I do not traffic in drugs or weapons or anything that harms children. But I am not a good man by most definitions. I do what is necessary to protect my family, my people, my territory, and sometimes what is necessary is not legal. The honesty was more terrifying than evasion would have been. Why are you telling me this? Because Marco loves you. Because in 3 weeks you have become essential to his healing. Because I need you to understand what you have walked into before circumstances force you to learn the hard way. Cold dread settled in my stomach. What circumstances? Dante set down his glass, pulled out his phone, showed me a photo that made my breath stop. Me, leaving the grocery store 3 nights ago. The image was grainy, clearly taken from a distance, but unmistakable, and drawn over my face in digital red a target. This was sent to Sergio, my second in command, yesterday, Dante said, his voice carefully controlled. From a number we traced to the Bratva, Russian Mafia. They have been testing our boundaries for months, trying to find weaknesses, leverage points, and now they have decided you might be one. The room tilted. They think I matter to you. You do matter to me. You matter to Marco. That makes you a vulnerability they will attempt to exploit. So what am I supposed to do? My voice came out sharper than intended. Hide? Run? Live in fear because I took a job? You increase your security. You allow my men to protect you. You do not leave this house without guards. Do not maintain predictable routines. Do not go anywhere that has not been cleared by Sergio first. That's not living. That's being a prisoner. That is being alive. He moved around the desk, crouched in front of my chair so we were eye level. Savannah, listen to me. These men do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. If they decide you are useful leverage, they will take you. And what they will do to you before they contact me for ransom. His jaw clenched. I will not allow that to happen. You don't own me. No, but I protect what is mine. And whether you accept it or not, you became mine the moment you sang to my son. The possessive certainty in his voice should have frightened me, should have sent me running. Instead, it did something to my pulse that I absolutely could not acknowledge. I need air. I stood abruptly, needing distance. I can't think with you this close. Then think about this. He rose, stepped into my space deliberately. I have lost one person I cared about to violence. I will not lose another. You stay in this house, you accept protection, or I will make you. Do you understand? You can't make me do anything, can't I? His voice dropped dangerously low. I have your apartment lease in my name now. Your landlord was very happy to break your lease for the right price. Your former employer at the grocery store received a very generous severance package for you. Every connection you had to your old life, I own them now. You could leave, yes, but you would have nowhere to go and no resources to get there. So I ask again, Savannah, do you understand? Fury and fear warred in my chest. You're blackmailing me into accepting your protection? I am ensuring your safety by any means necessary. What if I don't want to be here anymore? What if I quit? Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. You will not quit, because Marco needs you, and you love him too much to abandon him. I see it in the way you hold him, the way you sing to him, the way you check on him in the middle of the night when you think no one notices. He leaned closer. You are trapped, Tesoro, not by me, by your own heart. The Italian endearment Tesoro, treasure sent heat racing down my spine. I hate you right now, I whispered. I can live with that, as long as you are alive to hate me. The new security started immediately. 2 guards stationed outside the house at all times, cameras installed in every hallway, a GPS tracker in my phone that I couldn't disable without Dante being notified. When I needed to leave for anything rare and carefully planned, a minimum of 3 armed men accompanied me. It was suffocating, invasive, and worst of all, necessary, because the threats kept coming. A brick through the kitchen window with a note in Russian that Dante wouldn't translate. Strange cars circling the block. A flower delivery intended for me that Sergio intercepted the bouquet contained a small recording device. They are probing, Dante explained during one of our increasingly frequent late-night conversations. He'd started appearing in the library around midnight, where I'd retreat after putting Marco to bed. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just existed in the same space, both too wired to sleep. Testing our defenses, seeing how seriously we take your protection. And how seriously do you take it? I have 6 men dedicated solely to your safety. I have increased patrols around the property. I have made it very clear to every family in Chicago that anyone who touches you answers to me personally. His dark eyes met mine over the rim of his scotch glass. Extremely seriously. Why? I set down my tea. I'm just Marco's nanny. You could hire someone else, someone who doesn't come with a target on their back. Could I? He moved to sit beside me on the sofa, closer than necessary. Close enough that I could feel heat radiating off him. Find me another woman who knows that lullaby, who makes my son smile, who he calls for in the middle of the night instead of screaming wordlessly for his dead mother. That's not fair. No, but it is true. His hand lifted, almost touched my face, then dropped. You brought light back to this house, Savannah. I will not let anyone extinguish it. The intensity in his voice made breathing difficult. Dante, I know. You are his nanny. This is professional. We must maintain boundaries. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I tell myself these things every day. Every time I watch you with him. Every time you sing, and he finally finds peace. Every time you smile at something he does and I want to. He stopped, stood abruptly. I am going to check the perimeter. He left before I could respond. Left me sitting in the library with my heart racing and my mind spinning with all the things he hadn't said. The things I couldn't let myself want. The attack came on a Thursday. I was in the garden with Marco, teaching him about butterflies while 2 guards watched from strategic positions. Normal. As normal as life in a Mafia stronghold could be. Marco laughed a real laugh, bright and pure when a monarch landed on his outstretched finger. Sing, Savannah. Make it stay. I'd started humming when the guards' radios crackled. Sharp Italian, too fast for me to follow. But I understood the tone. Urgent. Dangerous. Inside. Now. One of the guards was already moving toward us. Miss Hayes, take Marco inside immediately. What's happening? Now. Training took over. I scooped Marco into my arms and ran. His laughter turned to frightened whimpers as he felt my fear. I burst through the kitchen door just as gunfire erupted. Not close, but close enough. Rosa appeared, her weathered face pale but controlled. Safe room. Follow me. I'd been shown the safe room during my first week, steel reinforced, stocked with supplies, designed to withstand assault. I'd hoped to never need it. Rosa entered a code on a hidden panel. The wall slid open, revealing stairs. Down. We descended into a space that looked like a bunker. Gray walls, basic furniture, banks of monitors showing the property from every angle. On those monitors, I watched men in dark clothing approach the house. Watched Dante's security team engage them with military precision. Watched muzzle flashes and people falling and violence that had always been abstract suddenly becoming horrifyingly real. Mama, Vanna? Marco's small voice shook. He'd started calling me that last week. I hadn't corrected him because it made him feel safe. Scared. I know, baby. I know. I pulled him close, positioning us away from the monitors. Started singing that lullaby because it was all I had. Hush now, little one. The door burst open. I screamed, pulling Marco behind me. Dante stood in the doorway, blood on his shirt, fury and fear warring in his dark eyes. Are you hurt? No. We're okay. What's happening? He moved to the monitors, jaw clenching as he surveyed the feeds. Bratva. 8 of them. Sloppy. Desperate. We have neutralized 6. The other 2 fled. He pulled out his phone, barked orders in Italian, then turned back to me. This was a message. They wanted to show they could reach you. Wanted to terrify you into running. Well, it worked. I'm terrified. But you are not running. He moved closer, his eyes searching mine. Why? I looked down at Marco, who'd fallen asleep in my arms despite the violence raging above us. This little boy, who'd lost everything and was slowly finding his way back, who needed stability and love, and someone who wouldn't leave. Because he needs me, I said simply. And apparently, I'm too stubborn to let Russian gangsters dictate my life choices. Something shifted in Dante's expression, softened and intensified simultaneously. You are remarkable. I'm scared out of my mind. Yes, but you are still here. He reached out, cupped my cheek with a hand that trembled slightly. Do you understand what that means to me? What you mean? His phone rang. He cursed, checked the screen, answered in Italian. The conversation was brief, his expression darkening with each word. Sergio has secured the perimeter. It is safe to go back up. He held out his hand. Come, I need to make calls, handle cleanup. Rosa will stay with you and Marco. I took his hand. Let him lead us back upstairs to a house that looked completely normal despite the battle that had just occurred. His people were efficient. Already the broken glass was being replaced. Already the evidence was disappearing. This was his world. Violence cleaned up and hidden. Danger as routine as breakfast. And I was choosing to stay in it. That night, after Marco finally slept, I found myself outside Dante's study. The door was open. He sat at his desk, head in his hands, exhaustion carved into every line of his body. You should be resting, he said without looking up. It has been a difficult day. So should you. I cannot rest until I know you are safe. He finally raised his head. The vulnerability in his expression stole my breath. They came for you today, Savannah. Because of me. Because I brought you into this world. If something had happened to you, if Marco had been hurt, I crossed to him before conscious thought, stood between his knees, let him pull me close, his forehead resting against my stomach. Felt him shake with emotions he'd held locked down all day. We're okay, I whispered, my fingers finding their way into his dark hair. We're safe. Your people protected us. This time. But what about next time? What about the time after that? His arms tightened around my waist. I cannot lose someone else I care about. I cannot survive it. Then don't. I tilted his face up, made him look at me. Don't lose me. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep us safe. And stop feeling guilty for circumstances you can't control. How are you not running from me? Because running means leaving. Marco. And somewhere in the last 3 weeks, he became mine to protect too. I paused, heart pounding. And because you're not the monster you think you are. You don't know what I am capable of. Don't I? You just killed or captured 8 men who threatened your family. I'm sure it wasn't the first time. Won't be the last. But that doesn't make you evil. It makes you dangerous, yes. But dangerous to the right people. He stood abruptly, his hands framing my face. You should fear me. I know, but I don't. Savannah, don't tell me I should leave. Don't tell me this is wrong. Don't tell me all the reasons we can't. He kissed me. No warning. No permission. Just his mouth claiming mine with desperate hunger. His hands tangling in my hair. His body pressing me against the desk with controlled urgency. I should have pushed him away. Should have remembered every boundary between employer and employee. Should have thought about Marco and professionalism and all the ways this and would complicate everything. Instead, I kissed him back, my fingers gripping his shoulders, my mouth opening under his. 3 weeks of tension exploding between us like a bomb finally detonating. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. This is a mistake, he whispered. Probably. You are Marco's nanny. I am your employer. This crosses every line. Yes. And I cannot stop, cannot pull away, cannot pretend I do not want this, want you, more than my next breath. My heart hammered against my ribs. So don't. He kissed me again, slower this time, deeper. A promise and a claim all at once. When he finally pulled back, his eyes burned with something fierce and possessive. You are mine now, he said. Not a question. A declaration. Mine to protect. Mine to keep safe. Do you understand? I'm not property, Dante. No. But you are mine nonetheless, and I am yours, whatever that means. However, it terrifies us both. I should have argued. Should have. Established boundaries. Should have done 1,000 things that weren't pulling him back into another kiss. But Marco called out from upstairs, frightened and needing me. And Dante pulled away, his jaw clenching with visible effort. Go to him, he said roughly. Before I forget every reason why stopping is necessary. I fled, up the stairs, into Marco's room, where I sang him back to sleep with trembling hands and swollen lips, knowing everything had just changed, knowing there was no going back to what we'd been before, knowing that loving Dante Castellano would be the most dangerous thing I'd ever done, and doing it anyway. The weeks that followed were a study in contradictions. During the day, we maintained careful distance. Professional. Proper. He was Marco's father. I was the nanny. We discussed schedules and dietary needs and therapy appointments like the kiss had never happened. But at night, when Marco slept and the house fell quiet, we found each other. In the library. In his study. Once. In the garden at midnight where he pulled me into shadows and kissed me like he was drowning and I was air itself. This is madness, I whispered against his mouth one night. 3 weeks since that first kiss. 3 weeks of stolen moments and careful distance. We can't keep doing this. Then stop me. His hands cupped my face. Tell me you don't want this. That you don't lie awake thinking about me the way I think about you. That when I walk into a room, your heart doesn't forget how to beat properly. I can't. Neither can I. He kissed my forehead, tender and claiming all at once. You have ruined me, Savannah Hayes. Completely and thoroughly ruined me. Good, because you've ruined me right back. Marco found us the next morning. Dante and I at breakfast, sitting too close, sharing a private smile over something Marco had said. The boy's dark eyes moved between us with 3-year-old perception that missed nothing. Papa, loves Mama Vanna? He asked, direct as only children can be. Dante's hand found mine under the table, squeezed. Yes, Piccolo, he said quietly. Papa loves Mama Savannah very much. My heart stopped. We'd never said the words, had danced around them, avoided them, pretended the intensity between us was anything other than what it clearly was. Good. Marco returned to his pancakes, unconcerned. Me too. Just like that. Simple acceptance from a child who'd learned to trust that good things could exist. Did you mean that? I asked later, when Marco was occupied with his toys. Or were you just telling him what he needed to hear? Dante backed me against the wall. Not threatening, deliberate. His eyes held mine with devastating intensity. I meant it. I love you. It is terrifying and complicated, and possibly the worst timing in history. But I love you, and I am done pretending otherwise. We barely know each other. I know you saved my son. I know you stayed when you should have run. I know you sing to him every night with a patience I do not possess. I know you are stronger than you believe, kinder than this world deserves, and brave enough to stand in a safe room during a firefight and still refuse to leave. His thumb traced my lower lip. What else do I need to know? That I love you too. The admission escaped before I could stop it. That I'm terrified of what that means. That I have no idea how to navigate this world you live in or if I'm strong enough to survive it. You are strong enough, and you will not have to navigate it alone. I will protect you. From the Bratva, from rival families, from anyone who thinks they can touch what is mine. There's that possessive thing again. Does it bother you? I should have said yes. Should have insisted on independence and equality and all the things I'd been taught to demand. Instead, I kissed him. Let him press me harder against the wall. Let myself feel claimed and protected and wanted in ways I'd never experienced. No, I whispered against his mouth. It doesn't bother me at all. The threat assessment meeting happened 2 days later. Dante insisted I attend. You need to understand what we are facing, he said. What loving me costs. Sergio ran the meeting in Dante's study. Maps of Chicago marked with territories. Photos of men I didn't recognize. Technical terms I was learning too quickly: rivals, territories, operations. The Bratva has gone quiet, Sergio explained. No movements, no communications. Our intelligence suggests they are regrouping after the failed assault. But Alexei Volkov, their new leader, is not known for patience. He will move again. When? Dante's voice was cold, professional. Nothing of the man who'd kissed me in the garden remained. Our best estimate? 2 to 4 weeks. He needs time to rebuild his forces, plan a better strategy. But Miss Hayes remains their primary target. Sergio looked at me. They believe hurting you will hurt Dante, will destabilize his leadership, make him vulnerable. They are not wrong. So what do? I asked. Just wait for them to attack again? We eliminate the threat first. Dante's jaw clenched. Before they have time to execute whatever they are planning. You mean kill them? I mean protect my family by any means necessary. The casual way he said it should have shocked me, should have made me recoil. But I'd lived in this house for almost 2 months now, had watched his men move through shadows, had seen the aftermath of violence cleaned up and hidden. I understood what protection meant in his world. How long will I need to stay locked up here? I asked instead. Marco needs more socialization. He should be around other children, going to playgrounds, living a normal life. Nothing about our lives is normal, Dante said flatly. Then make it more normal. For him. He's 3 years old. He shouldn't have to grow up surrounded by guns and guards and constant fear. He is a Castellano. This is his birthright. Fear, violence, the need for constant vigilance. These are the realities of our world. They don't have to be his reality. I stood, faced him across the desk. You want to give him a better life than you had? Start by letting him be a child. Take him to the zoo, the aquarium. Somewhere he can just be Marco, not the heir to a criminal empire. Sergio cleared his throat. She has a point. The boy needs normalization. And public outings with proper security could send a message to the Bratva that we are not afraid. Dante's eyes narrowed. Or it could provide them with the perfect opportunity to strike, then make sure they can't. I moved around the desk, touched his arm. Please. He's healing, but he needs more than this house to finish that healing. Something shifted in his expression. You are asking me to risk everything I have worked to protect. I'm asking you to trust that your protection is good enough. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded once. Sharp, controlled. The aquarium. This Saturday. Full security detail. Any sign of trouble and we abort immediately. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. If anything happens, if they touch you or Marco because I allowed this, his jaw clenched. I will burn this entire city to find them. The promise in his voice was absolute. And God help me. I believed him. Saturday arrived with autumn sunshine that made Chicago's skyline sparkle like something from a postcard. Marco bounced with excitement all morning, chattering about fish and sharks and all the things he'd seen in picture books but never in person. Will they be big, Mama Vanna? He asked while I helped him into his jacket. Papa says some fish are bigger than cars. Some are even bigger than that. I kissed the top of his dark curls. You're going to love it, sweetheart. Dante appeared in the doorway, already dressed in black jeans and a casual shirt that somehow made him look more dangerous than his usual suits. His eyes found mine, held them with an intensity that made my pulse skip. "The security team is ready," he said. 8 men, 2 vehicles. Sergio will be with us in the primary car. 8 seems excessive for a trip to the aquarium. 8 is the minimum I am comfortable with. He moved closer, his hand finding the small of my back, a possessive gesture that had become habit. "If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you tell me immediately. Understand?" "I understand." I touched his chest, felt his heart beating fast under my palm. "But nothing is going to happen. We're going to have a nice, normal family day." "Family," he repeated the word like testing its shape. "Is that what we are? Aren't we?" Something fierce and vulnerable flashed across his face. He kissed me then, right there in the hallway where anyone could see, claiming and tender all at once. "Yes," he murmured against my lips. "We are family. Mine. Papa. Mama Vanna." Marco's voice carried from downstairs. "Fish time! We go now!" Dante pulled back with visible effort. He has excellent timing. Or terrible timing, depending on perspective. His rare smile appeared. "Come, let us show our son the ocean." Our son. The word settled in my chest like coming home. The shed aquarium was crowded with weekend families. Normal people living normal lives without armed guards shadowing their every move. I watched mothers chase toddlers, fathers lifting children onto their shoulders, couples holding hands without checking constantly for threats. For a moment, I envied them their ordinary. But then Marco's small hand found mine, his eyes wide with wonder as we entered the Caribbean Reef exhibit, and I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. "Papa, look, turtle swimming." Marco pressed against the glass, transfixed. Dante stood behind him, one hand protective on his son's shoulder. The other found mine, lacing our fingers. Together. To anyone watching, we looked like a normal family. A man, a woman, a child experiencing simple joy. The guards maintained professional distance. 2 ahead of us, 3 behind, 3 more positioned at strategic exits. Sergio stood near the entrance to our current exhibit, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd. "You're actually smiling," I murmured to Dante as Marco dragged us toward the next tank. "I didn't know you could do that in public. I am out of practice." But his hand tightened on mine. "Thank you for pushing me to do this. You were right. He needs this. So do you." We moved through exhibits like a dance. The beluga whales made Marco laugh a sound that still felt precious and rare. The sharks fascinated him in the way only a 3-year-old could be fascinated by predators. And through it all, Dante touched me. Small gestures, a hand at my waist, fingers brushing my arm. His body angled to always keep me within reaching distance. Possessive, protective. Present in ways I'd learned meant "I love you" in his language. "Hungry," Marco announced after 2 hours of fish watching. "Want snacks? The cafe is on the main level," Sergio said, appearing at Dante's elbow. "I have 2 men there already, scouting the area. It is as secure as public spaces can be." Dante's jaw tightened. "Fine. But we do not stay long." The cafe was exactly what you'd expect from an aquarium. Overpriced sandwiches and families fighting over table space. We found a corner spot that gave Dante's guards optimal sightlines. Marco demolished chicken nuggets while Dante and I picked at food neither of us wanted. "You are tense," I said quietly, my hand covering his on the table. "Everything is fine. We've been here for 3 hours without incident. 3 hours is an eternity in my world. Long enough for plans to be made, positions to be taken, opportunities to present themselves. You can't live every moment expecting attack. I have to. It is the only way to. Prevent it." I was about to argue when Sergio's radio crackled. Low, urgent Italian that made Dante's entire body go rigid. "What?" I demanded. "Stay calm." Dante's voice dropped to steel. "We need to leave. Now." "Marco, come here." "But my nuggets." "Now, Piccolo." Something in his tone made Marco obey immediately. Dante scooped his son into his arms. His other hand gripped mine tight enough to hurt. We moved toward the exit, guards closing ranks around us, but casual, controlled, nothing to alarm the other visitors. "What's happening?" I asked again, terror rising in my throat. "Bratva. 3 vehicles just pulled into the parking structure. Volkov himself is here." My blood turned to ice. "He knows we're here." "Yes." Someone tipped him off. Dante's expression was murderous. "Which means I have a traitor in my organization. But that is a problem for later. Right now, we run." We burst through the aquarium's side entrance. 2 black SUVs waited, engines running. Sergio yanked open the back door of the lead vehicle. "Get in! Move, move!" I dove in with Marco still in my arms. Dante followed, pressing us both to the floor. "Stay down. Do not lift your heads for any reason." The vehicle lurched into motion. Tires squealed. And then gunfire. The sound was deafening even through bulletproof glass. Marco screamed, his small body shaking violently. I held him tighter, pressed his face into my shoulder, tried to cover his ears while Dante's body covered both of us. "How many?" Dante barked into his phone. 6 vehicles. Maybe 20 men. Sergio's voice came from the front seat, unnaturally calm. "They are herding us toward Lower Wacker Drive. That is where they want us. Enclosed space. Limited exits. Perfect ambush point." Dante's mind worked rapidly. "Break the pattern. Take Upper Wacker, then cut through River North. Lose them in traffic." More gunfire. The SUV swerved violently. Marco's screams turned to hyperventilating gasps. "Sing," Dante said urgently. "Savannah, sing to him. Now." My voice shook, but I found the melody. "Hush now, little one. Close your weary eyes." Marco's breathing hitched but didn't slow. His terror was too big, too immediate. The lullaby wasn't enough this time. "We cannot lose them," Sergio reported grimly. "They have anticipated every route. Boss, they are forcing us toward." The impact came from the side. A third vehicle slamming into us with calculated precision. We spun, metal screaming. Marco flew from my arms. Dante lunged, caught him before he hit the window. And then everything was motion and sound and terror compressed into seconds that felt like hours. When we stopped moving, the SUV was on its side. Dante had Marco pinned safely beneath him. I was tangled somewhere near the roof that was now the floor. Pain screamed through my left arm. "Out!" Dante commanded. "We are exposed here. Move!" Hands pulled me through the shattered window. Blood on my sleeve. My arm hanging wrong, but functional enough. Had to be functional enough because Marco was crying and Dante was dragging us both toward the second SUV that had managed to stay upright. Gunfire erupted from everywhere. Dante's men returned fire with professional precision. Bodies fell. I couldn't tell whose. Didn't want to know. "Get them out of here." Dante shoved us toward the vehicle. "Sergio, take them to the safe house. Lock it down. Do not open that door for anyone but me." "What about you?" My voice was raw with fear. "I end this. Here. Now." His eyes burned with cold fury. "I am done running from Volkov. Done letting him threaten my family." "Dante, no." He kissed me, hard and desperate and claiming, "I love you. Remember that. No matter what happens, remember that I love you." Then he was gone, running toward the gunfire instead of away from it. Toward Volkov and violence and possible death while Sergio physically dragged me into the SUV. "We have to go back." I fought against his grip. "We can't leave him." He gave an order. "We follow it." Sergio's voice held regret, but no hesitation. "Your job is to protect the boy. His job is to protect you. Let him do it." Marco sobbed against my chest. My arm throbbed with every heartbeat, and through the rear window, I watched Dante disappear into chaos. Watched the man I loved walk toward death so his son and I could escape. The safe house was in Evanston, a nondescript suburban home that looked exactly like its neighbors, except its basement had been converted into a bunker with steel doors and enough supplies to survive a siege. Rosa met us at the entrance, her face pale but controlled. "Dio mio. Miss Hayes, your arm. It's fine. I'm fine." I wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. But Marco needed me to be fine. So I would be. "Is there a first aid kit?" "I will handle it. You take care of the boy." Marco hadn't stopped crying since we'd fled the ambush. His sobs were different now. Not fear. Deeper. The sound. Of a child reliving the worst moment of his life. "Mama died like this," he whispered against my neck. "Car crashed. Mama didn't come back. Papa won't come back." My heart shattered. "Papa is coming back, sweetheart. I promise." "You don't know. You can't promise." His small fists hit my chest. Not hard, but with all the impotent rage of a 3-year-old who'd learned promises could break. "Mama promised. She said she'd always be here, but she left." "I know, baby. I know." I sank onto the basement floor, held him while he fell apart. "Sometimes bad things happen that people can't control. Your mama didn't want to leave you. She loved you more than anything. And your papa," my voice cracked, "your papa is the strongest, most careful man I've ever met. He's coming back because he loves you too much not to. And you? His tear-stained face looked up at me. You promise you won't leave? He won't leave. I promise. The words felt like a vow. A binding contract written in something deeper than ink. I'm not going anywhere, Marco. Ever. Rosa appeared with medical supplies and gentle hands that set my dislocated shoulder with practiced efficiency. I bit back, screams that wanted to escape. Couldn't show Marco more pain. Couldn't make this worse. Time moved like honey. Each minute an hour. Each hour an eternity. Sergio paced like a caged animal, phone pressed to his ear, receiving updates in Italian that grew grimmer with each call. What's happening? I demanded after the fourth call. Is he alive? Sergio, tell me. He is alive, injured but fighting. Boss took out 6 men personally, but Volkov brought 30. Our men are holding, but barely. 30 men. Against maybe a dozen of Dante's security. The math was brutal. He's going to die. The words escaped flat and certain. He's going to die, and it's my fault. If we hadn't gone to the aquarium, if you had not gone to the aquarium, this would have happened somewhere else. Sergio's eyes met mine. Volkov has been planning like this for months. Today, tomorrow, next week, the timing does not matter. What matters is boss knew this moment would come, and he chose you anyway. Chose love anyway. That is not your fault. That is his choice. A choice that's going to get him killed. Maybe. Or maybe it will give him something worth surviving for. Hours passed. Marco finally cried himself into exhausted sleep against my chest. My arm throbbed despite the painkillers Rosa had forced on me, and still no word beyond Sergio's increasingly tense phone calls. Then, at 11:47 p.m., headlights swept the driveway. Sergio's hand went to his weapon. Everyone downstairs. Now. But if it's Dante? If it is not, we need to be behind the steel door. No room for argument. Move. We retreated to the bunker. Rosa carried sleeping Marco. I stood beside Sergio, watching the monitor that showed the front entrance. A figure emerged from the vehicle. Tall, moving with obvious pain, but unmistakable. Dante. Alive. Covered in blood, limping, but alive. Let me out. I was already at the door. Sergio, open it now. Wait until I verify. Open the damn door or I'll find a way to do it myself. He opened it. I ran up the stairs, through the house, burst through the front door and into Dante's arms before rational thought could stop me. He caught me, staggered under the impact but held me. His face was bruised, split lip bleeding, but his eyes burned with fierce, possessive relief. You are alive, he breathed into my hair. You are safe. That is all that matters. You're hurt. God, Dante, there's so much blood. Not all mine. He pulled back enough to frame my face with blood-stained hands. Most of it belongs to Volkov. He will not threaten you again, ever. The finality in his voice told me everything I needed to know. You killed him. I ended the threat to my family. Yes. No apology, no regret. Just cold certainty. And I burned his organization to the ground. Anyone who came after. You, who thought they could touch what is mine. His jaw clenched. They learned today what happens when you threaten a Castellano. I should have been horrified. Should have pulled away from this man who'd just admitted to mass murder with his son sleeping downstairs. Instead, I kissed him, tasted blood and violence and survival on his lips. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever leave me thinking you're going to die. I will do whatever is necessary to protect you. Then protect yourself too. Because I can't lose you. Marco can't lose you. We need you alive. Something in his expression cracked. Vulnerability bleeding through the hardened exterior. I need you too. Both of you. You have become the reason I fight, the reason I survive. He kissed me again, desperate and claiming. Marry me. The words stopped my breath. What? Marry me. Not someday. Not when things are safe, they will never be completely safe. But now. Soon. Because I almost died today, and all I could think about was that I had not made you mine in every way that matters. That if I fell, you could walk away because nothing bound you here beyond choice. Dante, I know it is too soon. I know this world terrifies you. I know I am asking you to tie yourself permanently to violence and danger, and a man with more blood on his hands than you can imagine. But Savannah, his voice broke. I love you. Marco loves you. And I am selfish enough, desperate enough, to ask you to stay anyway, to marry me anyway. To build a life in the ruins of my world and trust that I will spend every breath I have protecting it. Tears I hadn't let fall all day finally broke free. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. Probably. I am not good at this. At opening myself to vulnerability or admitting weakness or... Yes. He stopped. Stared. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Not because you're good at proposals or because this world is safe or because loving you makes any logical sense. But because when I thought you were dying today, I realized I'd rather live one terrified year as your wife than a lifetime of safety without you. I touched his blood-stained face gently. So yes, I'll marry you. He kissed me like a drowning man finding air, like I'd just handed him salvation he didn't deserve but would fight to keep. I do not deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me now. Thank God. He pulled me closer, wincing at the movement. We should get inside. I need medical attention and Marco will want to see that I am alive. He thought you weren't coming back, like his mother. Pain flashed across Dante's face. Then I must show him I always keep my promises. We walked inside together. Sergio took one look at Dante's injuries and made calls for their private doctor. Rosa fussed and worried in Italian while cleaning visible wounds, and Marco, waking to his father's voice, flew across the room with a sob of relief. Papa came back. Always, Piccolo, Dante gathered. His son, despite his injuries, held him like the precious thing he was. Papa will always come back to you. And Mama Vanna? She is staying too. Forever now. Dante's eyes met mine over Marco's head. We are a family, the three of us. Nothing will change that. Marco's smile was brighter than sunshine. Good. I love my family. We love you too, sweetheart, I whispered, joining their embrace. So much. We stood like that, broken and blood-stained and impossibly whole, while the doctor arrived and the night deepened, and the aftermath of violence slowly faded into something that felt almost like peace. 3 months later, I stood in Dante's private chapel, wearing a dress that cost more than my old car. Simple ivory silk that Rosa had helped me choose. Flowers everywhere, roses and lilies and autumn foliage that made the small space feel like an enchanted garden. 20 people attended, Dante's most trusted men, Rosa and the household, staff who'd become family. Sergio, standing as best man with surprising emotion in his usually stoic face, and Marco, wearing a tiny suit that matched his father's, holding the rings with the seriousness of someone entrusted with the world's most important task. Carmen had flown in from New York, where she'd moved for a nursing position. She stood as my only guest, crying before the ceremony even started. I can't believe you're marrying a Mafia boss, she'd whispered while helping me dress. This is insane. I know. He could get you killed. I know that too. But you love him anyway. Yes. Despite every logical reason not to. Yes. She'd hugged me then. Then I'm happy for you. Terrified, but happy. Now I walked down the short aisle toward Dante, who watched me approach like I was the answer to every prayer he'd never dared speak. His injuries from the Volkov confrontation had healed. Just faint scars now, adding to the collection he already carried. You are beautiful, he murmured as I reached him. The most beautiful thing I have ever seen. You clean up pretty well yourself. His rare smile appeared. Are you certain about this? Last chance to run. I'm not running. I'm choosing you. Choosing us. Choosing this complicated, dangerous, beautiful life we're building. The ceremony was brief. Simple vows we'd written ourselves. His promising to protect but never cage me. To be honest, even when truth was ugly. To love me and Marco with everything he had. Mine promising to stay through darkness. To build our family with intention. To never let him forget he was worthy of the happiness he'd found. When the priest pronounced us married, Dante kissed me with a tenderness that made everyone look away. Private emotion on public display, vulnerable in ways he rarely allowed. You are mine now, he whispered against my lips. Legally, officially, completely mine. And you're mine. Don't forget that part. Never. He pulled Marco into our embrace. We are family. Forever. Marco giggled. Mama Vanna is mama for real now. That's right, baby. I kissed the top of his head. I'm your mama for real now. The reception was intimate. Dinner in the mansion's formal dining room with people who'd become family through choice rather than blood. Rosa outdid herself with courses that probably violated several health regulations but tasted like heaven. Speeches were made. Sergio's surprisingly heartfelt about watching his boss find happiness after loss. Carmen's warning Dante that she'd hunt him down if he ever hurt me. Marco's simple declaration that he loved his new family, making everyone's eyes suspiciously wet. Later, after guests departed and Marco fell asleep in his bed, Dante and I stood on the terrace overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his arm around my waist. "Marrying into this life? Ask me again in 20 years. That is not an answer." I turned in his arms, met his dark eyes that I'd learned to read like a language only we spoke. "I don't regret falling in love with you. I don't regret becoming Marco's mother. I don't regret choosing this family. But am I scared sometimes? Yes. Do I wish your world was safer, cleaner, less complicated? Absolutely. But we don't get to choose who we love, and I choose you. Every day, despite the fear, I choose you. I will spend my life ensuring you never regret that choice. I know you will." He kissed me then, slow and claiming and full of promises that would take a lifetime to fulfill. And in that moment, on the terrace of a mansion built with blood money, married to a man who'd killed to protect us, holding the future we'd carved from impossible circumstances, I was happy. Truly, completely, imperfectly happy. 1 year later. The clinic was nothing like I'd imagined when I'd first dreamed of opening my own practice. But then, I'd imagined a small storefront in Queens, not a state-of-the-art facility in Lincoln Park funded entirely by my husband. The Castellano Center for Child Development read the sign outside. Dante had insisted on including his name despite my protests. "Let people know who protects this place," he'd said. "Let them understand that anyone who threatens these children answers to me." It was a warning and a promise wrapped in bronze letters. Now I stood in the main therapy room, watching Marco, 4 years old now, and thriving help a younger child learn to use building blocks. His vocabulary had exploded. His confidence had grown. He was still sensitive, still carried the weight of losing his mother, but he was healing. We all were. "Mrs. Castellano?" My assistant poked her head in. "Your 3 o'clock is here. Mrs. Castellano." The name still felt surreal sometimes. But good. Right. "Thank you, Angela. I'll be right there. Also, your husband called. Said to remind you that Marco has his swimming lesson at 5, and dinner is at 7, and that Hal loves you." She grinned. "He says that every time." Yes, he does. Because Dante had learned that saying the words out loud mattered. That vulnerability wasn't weakness. That the people you loved needed to hear it spoken, not just felt. That night, after Marco's swimming lesson and family dinner and bedtime stories, Dante and I sat in the library that had become our sanctuary. The place where everything had changed a year ago. "I have news," he said, his hand finding mine. "Sergio has been handling more of the operational side of the business. The legitimate businesses, I mean. The restaurants, the import companies. He is good at it. Better than me, perhaps." "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I am stepping back. Not entirely. I will always have obligations to my family, my people. But I want to be present. For Marco. For you. For whatever comes next." His eyes dropped to my stomach. "For our daughter." My hand moved instinctively to the barely there swell I'd just started. Showing. 3 months pregnant with a daughter who'd been a surprise and a miracle all at once. "You're sure it's a girl?" Rosa insists. And Rosa is never wrong about these things. He pulled me closer, his hand covering mine on my stomach. "A daughter who will be loved and protected and given every opportunity her father never had. A daughter who will grow up knowing both strength and gentleness, like her mother. You're getting sentimental in your old age. I am getting human. There is a difference." He kissed my temple. "You did that. You and Marco. You reminded me that life is more than power and territory and control. That love is worth the vulnerability it requires. Even when it's terrifying. Especially then." Marco's voice called from upstairs. "A nightmare, most likely. They still came occasionally, though less frequently now." "I'll go," Dante said, already standing. "You rest." I watched him disappear up the stairs to comfort our son, this man who'd been forged in violence but chose gentleness with the people he loved. This dangerous, complicated, beautiful man I'd married. My phone buzzed. Carmen, sending photos of her own wedding planning. She'd found her own happy ending with the accountant who thought the most dangerous thing in her life was tax season. Normal, safe, everything I'd thought I wanted. But I wouldn't trade this life, this complicated, dangerous, occasionally terrifying life for anything. Because here, in this mansion built on blood and money and power, I'd found family, purpose, Love that was fierce enough to survive anything, and that was worth every risk I'd taken to get here. Epilogue. 5 years later. The playground in our private backyard echoed with children's laughter. Marco, 9 years old now, pushed his little sister Lucia on the swings while she squealed with delight. Our son, 3-year-old Matteo, toddled after them, determined to keep up with his older siblings. "Higher, Marco, higher," Lucia demanded, fearless in the way only a 5-year-old who'd been told she could do anything could be. "Careful, Piccola," Marco warned, protective as always. "Papa will kill me if you fall." "Papa won't kill anyone anymore," Lucia announced with a child's certainty. "Mama says he's reformed." I laughed from the terrace where Dante and I sat watching our children play. Reformed might be a strong word. Retired is more accurate, Dante corrected, his arm around my shoulders. Mostly. There are still situations that require my attention. But Sergio handles 90% of operations now. I am simply an advisor. He kissed my temple. An advisor who spends most of his time attending soccer games and dance recitals and pretending to understand why our daughter needs 17 different outfits for her American Girl doll. It's called being a praise, Father. It is called being wrapped around a 5-year-old's finger. But I do not mind. Rosa appeared with fresh lemonade and cookies still warm from the oven. "The children will spoil their dinner," she said, but she was already heading toward them with treats. "Some things never change," I murmured, watching Marco carefully supervise while Lucia and Matteo demolished cookies. "No, some things are eternal." Dante's hand found mine, our wedding rings simple gold bands we'd chosen together, catching the sunlight. "Like this, like us. You've become a romantic. I have become honest about what matters. There is a difference." Carmen's voice called from inside the house. "Savannah? We're here!" She appeared on the terrace with her husband Brian, and their twin daughters, also 5, born just months after Lucia. The girls immediately ran to join the playground chaos, while Carmen collapsed into a chair. "I don't know how you do this with 3, she said. 2 is killing me. Practice. And Rosa's cooking. And wine. Lots of wine," Dante added solemnly. We sat together, watching our children play in the golden afternoon light. Safe. Protected. Growing up in a world Dante and I had fought to make gentler than the one he'd inherited. "Do you ever miss it?" Carmen asked me later, while the men grilled and the children played. "Your old life? Normal? Simple?" I thought about the grocery store where I'd counted pennies, the cramped studio apartment, the fear of not making rent, the loneliness of existing without family, without purpose, without love, fierce enough to reshape a man who'd been forged in violence. "Not for a second," I said honestly. I gestured at the children, the house, the life we'd built. "This is everything I didn't know I needed. Even with the danger, the Bratva is gone. The rival families have truces. Dante's legitimate businesses are actually legitimate now." I smiled. "We're probably safer than most families in Chicago." "Probably isn't definitely." "No, but it's enough." That night, after guests departed and children were tucked into beds with stories and kisses, Dante found me in the library. Our place, where everything had changed 9 years ago, when he'd asked me to marry him covered in blood and desperation. "What are you thinking about?" He settled beside me on the sofa we'd shared countless nights. "That lullaby. The one that started everything." I leaned into his warmth. "Did I ever tell you how my grandmother learned it?" "No." Her grandmother taught it to her, who learned it from her grandmother. Generations of women, passing down a melody that somehow crossed oceans and cultures and found its way to both your wife and me. I looked up at him. What are the odds? In my experience, some things are simply meant to be. His fingers traced patterns on my arm. You were meant to walk onto that plane, meant to hear Marco crying, meant to sing a song that would bring you into our lives, meant to save us both. That's very romantic for a reformed crime boss. Retired crime boss. There is a distinction. Is there? He kissed me instead of answering. Slow and deep and full of promises we'd already kept and ones we'd spend a lifetime fulfilling. "I love you," he murmured against my lips. "In this life and whatever comes after. You and our children are my redemption, Savannah. The only good I have ever done that truly matters. We love you too, all of us. Complicated, dangerous, beautiful you." Footsteps on the stairs made us pull apart. Marco appeared in the doorway, concern on his young face. "Lucia had a nightmare. She's asking for the lullaby." I stood immediately, but Dante's hand caught mine. "Together," he said. "We go together." So we climbed the stairs, this man who'd killed to protect us, and the woman who'd chosen to love him anyway, to sing our daughter back to sleep with a melody passed down through generations. A lullaby that had brought us together, that had healed a broken family, that would continue, through our children and their children, carrying hope, and love and proof that even in darkness, light could bloom. Hush now, little one, close your weary eyes, I sang softly, Dante's voice joining mine, and Lucia smiled in her sleep, safe and loved and surrounded by family, the family we'd built from impossible circumstances, the family that made every risk, every fear, every dangerous choice completely worth it. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.